I'm Anthony Shop, and I'm the co-founder of a digital agency called Social Driver. I looked at these great examples because I got to see the slides in advance that Caitlin was going to share, and they're amazing. And I think one of the things I find is a challenge in the nonprofit sector to get to those results is shifting the mindset. Going back into your organization with your executives and your board and your staff and your members and just shifting the mindset from 20th century marketing, communication, engagement to 21st century. So that's kind of what I'm going to try to share with you today. Just a little bit of background. So I started about 15 years ago. My first job was in college. I was for a nonprofit. I didn't get paid, as you can imagine. That's how a lot of us start in nonprofits. And I was doing marketing and PR outreach for a summer camp called Camp Quality for children with cancer. And one of the things I discovered really quickly that got me passionate about the nonprofit sector was that there are organizations doing amazing things that for some reason have a really hard time getting that story out there. And one of the kind of little wins that we had that summer was when we were just trying to get news vans up to take pictures of kids at this camp. We just, talking about the camp didn't really get people there. But when I found a girl who had Ewing sarcoma and was going to have her cast off of her leg for the first time, and she had been a swimmer, so that she could get back in the pool for the first time in 3 years, we thought that's a story we think people might like. And telling that story, a press release and call, got people there. And we got great news coverage, and it helped us raise money and all kinds of great things. And so I realized at that point that if we can connect with people and tell stories and get those stories out, we can actually make a big difference. So at that point in my career, my life, I thought I would be an executive director of a nonprofit, worked for many nonprofits, moved to DC, and I went to business school, and then now I started this company where we've grown to a team of about 25 people, and a large portion of our clients are nonprofits. And someday, if I learn more, I might be able to someday achieve that dream of being an executive director of a nonprofit, but now I get to just micro-focus on the things that we know how to do, so that works really well. I think that the parallel for me across those two experiences is what I kind of tried to build this business around, which is that we are optimistic and we believe the future is bright. And I have to think everybody in this room agrees, because if not, you'd have a really hard time going to work every day if you didn't think what you were doing was making the world better. So, despite cable news and everything happening, we think the future is bright and we can really achieve that. But why is the future bright, and how are we going to get there? It's not going to be an app. It's not going to be the new intranet you're launching. It's not going to be some bureaucracy or reorganization. It's all about bringing people together. Because forever, people who came before us thousands of years ago have had dreams of things we wanted to do that we just couldn't accomplish, or we didn't know how to make it possible. And in the last 10, 20 years, things have become possible for the very first time. Just hearing Tara's example about how she could, convene a virtual focus group across time and space to find out which bus to not ride. That's something that 20, 30 years ago would have been impossible, and now you can do it from your phone while you walk down the street if you're pretty good, and you can do both of those things at the same time. So I think that's where we have to shift our mindset when we think about social media. This is not how do we push our same content out to new channels to reach people, but how can we connect people, and how can we connect with people to do things we've always wanted to do, but we weren't brave enough to say we could do it until now, and we say, let's be the first to do this. Let's have what we call kind of a driver mentality so that we can try to accomplish something for the first time. So what I hope I'll give you is maybe a little bit of language and mentality to bring back so that you can champion some of those types of initiatives. And I think the number one thing we have to do when we think about social technology and when we think about these tools is put people at the center rather than our brand. And Caitlin gave some great examples of organizations that are doing that. How do we make the experience about the customers, the donors, the members, the folks that we're serving, rather than making it about us? You can produce the best annual report in the world, but most people, and you can put a beautiful photo like this one on the cover, but that's not going to make that content that's solely about you interesting to people who care about themselves. So we have to figure out how to engage people in new ways. And I think a way to think about this, and Lynn she chalked it up. I mean, she started this earlier, so I had to go with it. I was glad she queued it up. Was the selfie notion? This is the selfie that went around the world. It broke Twitter. I happen to be friends with Samsung's social media manager, and what you may or may not know is that Samsung was behind this. Now, I am not a graphic artist, so I have put this in an iPhone because that's what I know how to do on my slides. But Samsung was a partner in this initiative, and these were taken with Samsung devices. And what Samsung realized is, I think, the thing that each of you can bring back to your organization, this question. Rather than try to get everybody to talk about me, in a world where people are writing real-time autobiographies of themselves online, they are literally taking selfies, figuratively and literally. People are taking selfies and telling stories all day long. How can I get my organization in that selfie? How can I become a character in it? And that's what Samsung did. In this picture, Samsung's not even pictured, yet it drove a ton of engagement for them. Not everybody even knew that they were connected to it, but many people did. They saw that device because they saw other camera angles. And I think that's the question we have to ask ourselves. People are already doing this stuff. They're already talking. They're already telling stories. They're already writing reviews. How do I get my organization to be a character in that selfie, rather than try to reinvent the wheel and get people to broadcast a commercial for me? Because that old broadcast mentality, when we had very few channels to push information and we could pay to interrupt people, and nonprofits have never had the budget of a brand to interrupt people, but we still tried that. Well, we can mail things to people and we can try to interrupt people and get them to read about us. It's less and less effective. It's more and more expensive. And I love this picture of Times Square, which sort of illustrates that it's very noisy in the world and it's expensive to interrupt people, and this is probably the most expensive place to do it. But what I loved about when I found this picture was when we zoom in, we see this guy at the bottom, really small, and I zoom in here, I don't know if you can see it, but he's in the middle of Times Square doing this. He's not looking at the ads that people are paying for to try to interrupt him. He is doing what he wants to do. I like to say he's on a mission. And just as Tara's mission was that she was checking out reviews to decide what bus to ride, he might be checking in on Foursquare or taking a selfie so his friends could see him, or looking on Yelp to see where should I eat in Times Square. The answer is don't eat in Times Square. But he's not paying attention to what other people want him to pay attention to. So that is the reality of the 21st century. That's how things have shifted. And if we can't get into the focus and attention of our audience, our customers, our people, then we're going to spin our wheels and waste a lot of time and money and resources, and there's going to be many opportunity costs. So we have to shift that mindset. I think that means that when we think of social media, let's think of it not like a television, not a channel where you say, well, gosh, we had this great story. Let's push that out there. Let's push that out on Twitter. Let's push that out on Facebook. Let's push that out on email. Don't think of it as pushing information out, because this is not a TV. Think about how you can have a conversation. And I was like thinking of it in terms of these sort of spaceship-looking conference phones that we've all maybe struggled with. Because what do those do? It's not just to push information in one direction, but it's to facilitate a conversation and to allow people, no matter where they are, to come around this sort of modern-day campfire where we can share stories and information and get somewhere that we wouldn't have gotten if we hadn't all been together. It allows us to achieve something that wouldn't have been possible before this technology. And that's how you have to think about Twitter. And that's how you have to think about LinkedIn. And that's how you have to think about Facebook. What are my people trying to accomplish? What mission are they on? What do they want to do that they can't do otherwise? And how can I help them do that? How can we use these tools to facilitate that? So it's a very different mindset. And it means that you can have a Facebook page set up and be using it in a way that's really great and conversational, that actually helps people solve problems, or you can have one where you just post your press releases, and it's not the tool's fault whether one works or one doesn't. It's about how you use it. Are you using it like a TV, or are you using it like a telephone? I'll leave you with one little example of something that happened to me walking down the street that I just think is an illustration of how you can make this easy. TJ Maxx Marshall sent this truck around DC, and it was, a display truck. They do this all the time in busy cities, that showing that their wares and that you should go. And on the back of that truck, there's a note that says, snap a picture with your of this for your chance to win, with a hashtag. So I got my picture in front of it, and I tweeted that with the hashtag. And it got retweeted quite a few times, my followers and some of their people, and they tweeted it back and all that kind of stuff. But I ended up also getting a $100 gift card from them, by the way. I was one of the winners. But what I like about this is that they took something they were already doing. And, you know, if you asked me, what could TJ Maxx do to get you to take a picture of their store or their ad and tell all of your friends? Gosh, I don't care about TJ Maxx enough to do that. I probably wouldn't have even noticed the truck. But there was some little social hook there where me going along in my day, writing my autobiography by checking in and sharing and doing the things people do, there was a little hook where I said, well, maybe I'll let TJ Maxx be in this selfie. And I did that and ended up getting out there, and, you know, I think it's gotten in some speeches, so I think maybe it was a good thing for them. But it's a great example of how you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel and launch a brand new app or do something. You can take something you're already doing, and then you can take something your customers, your donors, your audience is already doing, and find a little link so that you can get in that selfie. And that's the question I would ask you to bring back. What are my donors doing? And how can I become part of that autobiography that they're writing, part of that story that they're telling? How do I get in that selfie that they're already taking? And if I do that, now you're starting to tackle what I think is the 21st century approach to marketing rather than yesterday.